There's no doubt about it. Whether times are normal or times are strange as they are now, New York City is full of crazy people. Anyway, I wanted to do a video for Dan about my 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 favorite jazz records for a Sunday morning. Sunday morning, in jazz terms, is a idealistic place. Sunday morning represents that time when we've worked all week, we partied on Saturday, and now it's Sunday morning when there's sunlight and we are relaxing and waking up slowly for a day of rest. On the seventh day, God took a break, if you believe in the biblical account of creation, which I do. So the following records, though primarily jazz, with a couple left ringers thrown in, are all about that vibe, that chilled, relaxed, slowly waking up to reality vibe. As I make this video, actually at this point in time I'm sitting on Bleecker Street, about 50 paces from what used to be CBGB's is now John Barbato's. This block of Bleecker Street between Bowery and Lafayette used to be a really dangerous block. When I used to go to CBGB's in the early 90s to hear all sorts of bands, I'd walk down this block and it was kind of kept your nose clean and just kept walking. Now this block is full of bars and clothing stores and the Overthrow boxing club, and it's like the rest of the city, full of people with money, and a good place to sit out and smoke a cigar and talk about records. Cinematic Orchestra is the creation of one Jason Swinko, who, an amateur of jazz, but also as a member of the Ninja Tune roster, taken with samples and sampling environments, created a jazz group based on those samples. So he created tunes based on samples, probably of well-known jazz classics, then presented the samples to his musicians, who then improvised and created new material based on the samples, to which Swinko then remixed the samples, creating Motion, Cinematic Orchestra's debut recording, which is, in my opinion, a classic jazz recording, full of jazz moods and jazz vibrations and great moments of swing and improvisation, but primarily mood. It's a wonderful record of jazz moods which are universally felt and which is very successful on this recording. Melanie Dibiasio, a French singer who I know very little about, but who has made a goodly amount of records. She's very dark, very noirish in the film noir vein. I love her compositions. I love the mood she extends. This record is Melanie Dibiasio remixed by Giles Peterson. I couldn't find my other recordings of hers. I have a couple more on vinyl, but and this is remixed, so it has more of a dance groove. But good God, what a great singer, a beautiful woman, a great voice. She just knows how to create a mood, a vibration, and it is unmistakably out of the jazz idiom, in the same way that, again, Cinematic Orchestra or Portishead or any number of groups draw on jazz, but she is more of a pure jazz singer, even though she may not be labeled as such as far as categorization goes. But man, she writes great songs. Her other records are also great. And just dig her vibe, dig the sound of her voice. She's a philosopher, man. And you can hear it in everything she sings. She swings hard. Her tunes are very, I don't know, a combination of Nina Simone, Kenny Rankin maybe, and little Joni Mitchell. But also, you know, there's some Duke Ellington in there as well, deep within the seams of what she's doing. First time I heard her, I forgot how I came to hear Melanie Dibiasio. She's certainly not a name that's known in the U.S., even though quite popular in France, I take it. But man, if you dig jazz vocalist, she is the top of the game today as far as I'm concerned, even though I think she's really not considered jazz. Tommy Flanagan, for me, more so than Hank Jones, is one of the greatest classic jazz pianists. Extremely lyrical, always sort of mellow to my way of thinking. His record overseas with Elvin Jones, I believe Wilbert Ware, is one of the great jazz recordings of all time. Also, the original pressing of that is extremely valuable. But this on the Moodsville series, and I love the whole Prestige Moodsville series. It's the idea of they all strike a certain mood. They're mellow, they're dark, it's 4 a.m., they're swinging, but they're simmering. They're kind of in the vibe. Everybody's kind of mellow on all the Moodsville records, which cross a great divide in the Prestige catalog. I'm sure Dan has every Moodsville recording. I don't. When I see them, I buy them. But this, for me, is one of the great ones, with Roy Haynes on drums. I mean, you could not have two more articulate, lyrical, swinging, urbane, smart jazz players than Tommy Flanagan and Roy Haynes. And they play off each other so beautifully on this recording. You know, these guys are they're masters of the vernacular. They're masters of the gift of jazz gab. Roy Haynes, you know, I think when Elvin Jones was alive, Roy never quite got his due, even though he made so many brilliant recordings with actually a much wider array of jazz musicians than Elvin did. Because after Coltrane, Elvin had his own group and they were playing to him. But Roy Haynes plays on so many brilliant recordings across the jazz canon, and he swings to this day. I mean, it's amazing the guy is still alive. Forget Keith Richards. What is, I think Roy Haynes is like 93 or something, and 3 or 4 times a year he has a week at the Blue Note. And if you see him play live now, he can't really solo as he did, but when he's swinging, he swings his ass off. His time feel is beautiful. And it's the same as it was on the great Roy Haynes records, Out of the Afternoon or Chick Corea's Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. You know, I have a real problem with America in general. We do not honor our jazz musicians, who are some of the greatest geniuses to ever stride the earth. You know, from Art Tatum to Roy Haynes to Charlie Parker to John Coltrane. There should be statues of these guys in Washington. Yet, you know, Coltrane has a little statue, I believe, in Hamlet, North Carolina, where he was born. Whatever, not to get on that whole trip. But this is a great record for Tommy Flanagan. There are no bad Tommy Flanagan records. But this one on Moodsville is perhaps my favorite. This record, the trio, on an unusual London Savoy recording. Hank Jones, Wendell Marshall, Kenny Clarke, perhaps the most elegant jazz trio to ever exist, is just a perfect example of what a jazz trio should be. Hank Jones in his element, Kenny Clarke. There's never been a more swinging, more elegant, more pristine, refined, capable, technically perfect drummer than Kenny Clarke. Largely credited with creating the ride cymbal beat. I believe Joe Jones is credited with creating the hi-hat beat we all know so well on jazz recordings. This is a wonderful recording of just, if you want the epitome of what a jazz trio is, the trio is it. There's a little confusion because there's another record also called The Trio, also on Savoy, also led by Hank Jones, which is purely the trio. This record is the trio and guest. So you hear Herbie Mann. I'm not at home, so I don't know the other players, but you hear them playing beautiful tracks in the idiom with guests playing solos and vamping alongside the main three characters. If you can find this record, this is one of my top recordings for what exemplifies a jazz trio. And a perfect record for a Sunday morning.
Someday he'll come along, the man I love, and he'll be big and strong, and treats me sweet and gentle, the way he should. I got it bad, and that ain't good. I don't care who knows I am blue when you're alone. Who cares for starlit sky?
Edie Gourmet of Steve and Edie fame. Edie Gourmet from that period, late 50s through the 60s, through the early 70s, when jazz was still largely the currency of American popular music. You figure in the 1940s, big band jazz was the most popular music in America before jazz itself switched to bebop, hard bop, post bop, fusion, free jazz. But she sang in that wonderfully swinging way. She had amazing pipes. The woman could sing anything. I think she probably could have sang opera because she just has effortless power and the swing of the era she grew up in. And I love anything by Edie Gourmet. You might say it's not jazz, but again, that's from that period when jazz was the common and vernacular and popular music. And you had Frank Sinatra, Bobby Darin, Leslie Uggams, Dionne Warwick, all these singers who would not necessarily cite as jazz singers, but who undeniably swing in the idiom. And I just love all these old Edie Gourmet albums, and they're pretty hard to find on ABC, Paramount, or Columbia. And she made a ton of records, and she also had a second career as a popular Spanish singer. But Edie Gourmet, Edie Sings the Blues, great record. Great for sitting around on Sunday morning. In New York City, you traditionally read the New York Times, have some coffee, and just chill out. Barry Harris, Chasing the Bird. I will take Barry Harris as one of the great hard bop and more pianists of all time, as exemplified by this record with, I believe, Clifford Jarvis. I'm not sure who the bassist is because I'm not at home. I'm sitting here on Bleecker Street having a beer and smoking a cigar. But you cannot go wrong with this record. It's funny, he only does one bird tune on the record. Maybe it's in the vibration of Charlie Parker. But every tune is just, again, this is another jazz trio record that is simply stellar. And for my money, Barry Harris is a more interesting, more, I don't know what the word is, intellectual, more hard bop, more seriously oriented player than a couple of the other pianists I've included in this video. Great technique and really meaty, meaningful, lyrical lines that he plays on this record. I've had a few other Barry Harris records. I have one, Preminato, I believe it's called, with Elvin Jones, but this is a better recording on Prestige. This is oddly a Japanese Prestige record, but it's just yet another perfect trio record. And on a Sunday morning, you know, you want to have something driving and swinging hard, something you just kind of coast along to, and this is that record. Oscar Peterson with Louis Hayes and Nels Henning Ørsted Peterson, one of the greatest bassists of all time. I'm not a huge Oscar Peterson fan. I know that in a way he's a perfect pianist, sort of out of the mold of an Art Tatum, somebody who really doesn't need a group. But while he swings very hard, particularly on this record, and there's some great exchanges between Peterson and Peterson, I think Peterson and Hayes really raise Oscar Peterson's game on this record, which is a Pausa recording, which may have been on MPS originally. Frankly, for me, it's background music because Peterson is just so, excuse me, effortless. But he's kind of on auto control because he has so much technique. When I first moved into Greenwich Village in the early 90s, and I worked at the Blue Note Club briefly, Peterson was still alive then. He would play the club every year, and he was paid more than anyone who ever performed at the Blue Note in that period. I think he pulled like $100,000 a week or something, and the lines were around the block. Ellis, Regina, Brazilian music in general is an incredibly deep well of sophistication, of groove, of compositional ingenuity, harmonic beauty that is easily on par with any American jazz. True Brazilian music is sort of an unknown quantity to most Americans who are into jazz. I don't quite know why it is. Pre-bossa nova, bossa nova, tropicalia, even Brazilian drum and bass music is incredibly sophisticated. Elis Regina, often considered the greatest vocalist in Brazilian music, recorded dozens and dozens of records from the mid-60s right through to 1984 when she died of an overdose of cocaine, which is really, really sad. I guess her most well-known record to American audiences is Elise and Tom, her duo recording with Jobim. In America, we know bossa nova music, we know Getz Gilberto, we know Joe Donato, we know, the great work of Jobim, but I think it sort of ends there, and that is really tragic. The work of Elis Regina alone is effervescent, beautiful, joyous, sophisticated. There is a sophistication in all Brazilian music that actually, I think in many ways, supersedes American popular music easily. It is just astounding music. You know, she's just a force of nature. Her tone, her phrasing, her energy, her brilliance, her just joyousness, and everything she sings is, to me, extremely profound. Anyway, Elis Regina, just an amazing singer who I just adore, and I bought many of her recordings, and they're just effortless, and they're really brilliant, and you really should research this music. It's very deep.